So, one of the things that I really find that we are dealing with at the moment is that we must understand, and this is the one thing that I really need people to understand in the hour that we're in, is that deception, all the enemy can do is get you to believe a lie. And if you can believe a lie, he will deceive you. And then from that deception, you will build your level of truth. And because of that, destruction can come in. Because at the end of the day, if you believe, and this is why we've got to go back, and this is why I think we are in an hour right now more than ever where we've got to get back to the Word. We've got to get back to the Word. Because this is our guideline. It's the Word. There isn't anything else. It's the Word. Because, when people start to speak, there's so many voices in the time and the hour that we're in. And I really pray that in this time of this month of Elul, as we have just entered into the time of the month of Elul on Thursday evening, we entered into this time of the month of Elul. And the month of Elul is where the king is in the field. And if you see in the time, it's what you compare to the dove. The male dove starts to coo and call in the female doves. And this is really a time of where we need to be able to, in this time of our preparation time, where we can prepare ourselves not only for Yom Teruah, because it's 30 days from now, that from the time of the month of Elul, from Thursday to Yom Teruah, we've got 30 days. And this is the time of when we're really preparing for Yom Teruah, which is when it's going to be the Feast of Trumpets. So if there were to be a time that Yahuwah would come, this would be the time of his coming. But then you've got the 10 days after Yom Teruah until Yom Kippur, leading up to Sukkot, where again there's a time of introspection. So really, this is a season of 40 days, of where we enter into this 40-day season, this 40-day period, of where we really need to be able to do great introspection, where the king is now. It's like the final hour, and today we're really going to have to understand a few things. And I think, sure, Francois, you've done such groundwork that it's wonderful for the groundwork that you've done. Thank you. Because we really need to understand this Torah portion reading that we've read, and he's already spoken so much in terms of the Torah portion. I'm going to go more into the book of the prophets. And where he's really speaking sternly about a wake-up call. Come out. And this is where we really now need to wake up to be able to understand that this is why the Father is telling us now, you need to wake up, you need to come back to a place of where you need to understand that it's time for introspection. It's time for us to be able to look and see, is that which I believe, is it truly the truth? This morning, as I was talking to someone this morning, this person has had to make a big decision in their life. A decision that was led by the Father in obedience to what he believed is the obedience to the Word. And he's taken a big decision in his life to be able to step out and come to a place of saying, I'm going to make this decision. But there's been people that have tried to say, but they went and did a research and listened to other teachings. Now my argument is, are we supposed to do research? Or are we supposed to seek the Father, come back to the Word and say, okay, Father, what are you saying to me? And at the end of the day, we are supposed to walk a relationship with the Father in what the Father tells me to do. Now, if the Father has told me to cover my hair, fair enough, I can go do a teaching. And this is just what I was sharing yesterday with Miranda. I can go do a teaching on covering hair. But you know what? Someone else is going to come with another 3 scriptures to be able to counteract that which I have brought, to be able to say that you've got to cover hair. So at the end of the day, the only thing that I say to people, this is my walk. And this is what the Father has called me to do. And if He has not given you that revelation, I can't come and put it on you, because it's your walk. And so we can come with all our theology, and we can come with everything of what we've gone and brought theology, but at the end of the day, what is the Father saying to you? And how does the Father want you to walk? Because at the end of the day, your walk is not my walk. Your call is not my call. And so if He is expecting and requiring something of me, it might not be what He's requiring of you. So I can go do a teaching on it. It's not to say that the people are going to listen anyway. Like, try and just bring a teaching on food you should eat and food you shouldn't eat. Just try that one. Try and bring a teaching on that. And immediately they're going to go give you all the scriptures that there is out there that they will go and get from this Bible. Like, for example, they're going to tell you, which is the one that keeps being given to me. Even when I did the conference, there was people there and they came up to me and they said, what about that one that we're not to offend your brother? Do you see what I mean? So, that is a valid thing. So now what do I do? So that I don't offend my brother, but I walk. Father's told me to be a vegetarian. So if I go to someone's house and they've served me meat, do I go eat the meat now because they've served me meat? Or do I say, oh, look, I'm sorry, you know what? It's just not what... So what do we do? Well, the Bible on the one hand tells you not to offend your brother, but we need to understand that there's ways of, we can't misinterpret Paul. We need to understand what he was saying. And so that's why I'm saying, if you're going to sit and say something, people are going to bring you 3 other scriptures to tell you otherwise. So what is the Father trying to tell us in the hour that we're in? My child, I am giving you this time. I want to walk with you. I want to have a relationship with you. I want you to be able to hear what I'm saying to you. This is what I'm saying to the Father. I'm saying, Father, I switch on my phone and I've got all these people telling me a bunch of things. This is going to happen and that's going to happen. And I'm saying, but what are you saying to me? Because if you called me, then I need to be able to equip your people. I need to be able to talk to your people. So what are you telling me? Because I need to hear you. Now, Father told me, gather food. Hey, gather food. You better prepare. You got to prepare. Now, other people are not preparing. I mean, I was just at someone's house just the other day and I said, I just want to ask you, are you preparing? And they looked at me like, for what? For Shabbat. I said, the things are not getting easier. Are we preparing? No. Because this is just where they're at the moment. Because what are they like? And Francois said, what are they lending their ears to? Are they truly hearing Abba? And are they seeing what's going around them? Or what are they preoccupied with? What are they busy doing? Who are they listening to? And that's why Francois has been hammering on this now for I don't know how many weeks. He keeps saying the same thing. Who are you listening to? Because if you're going to be listening to the Father, like I say to people, I say, okay, look, me, I'm very practical. I'm just, this is the reality. Okay, so you think because we've come to level 2, it's getting better. So people are carrying on because it's going to get better. And I say, let's get real. I just want to ask you a question. Do you really honestly believe that it's going to get better? As far as we know, this pandemic doesn't seem to be going away. Even though all the prophets said that it was going to finish by April, and other prophets said it's going to finish by then, and this is going to, and when the summer comes, it's going to be gone, and that was in Europe and everything. And, wow, I don't see it going away. I still see it seems to be rearing its ugly head, even in I think it was in New Zealand. They hadn't had a case for how long, and all of a sudden new cases have come up. Israel didn't have a case either. Now all of a sudden there's all these cases coming again, but they are sitting with temperatures of 38 and this thing dies in the summer, so it's supposed to be gone. Why is something going to go away that they've put there to be able to control you with? They're not going to want to take it away because this was the test run for them to do their thing. And now I say to people, so at the end of the day, what was the purpose of everything of this pandemic? Was it really about the pandemic, or was it really the fact that they're wanting to control you through the pandemic? So they're not going to take away their control. So which means things are not going to get any better. Which is, what is the next thing? So already we're going to have to wear a mask, which they do now. They have to put a gun to your head, and please, if they put that gun, don't let them do it in the front of your head. Do it here on the side. Say, take it here, or do it on your pulse. Because you do not want them to interfere with your pineal gland. So, I always wear a shield, so when my shield is there, they can't even do it because the shield is covering all the face. So then they got no option but to go to the side or go wherever. So then, because of the shield. So I just prefer the shield even to the mask. But there's some places that, like President Harper, they won't even allow you, and Macro, they don't allow you to go in with a shield. They want a shield and a mask. But most cases, they do allow you with a shield. So I just put a shield. Then they can't go test my forehead because I got a big shield there. So then they got to go somewhere else. So then they put this gun thing to you to test your temperature. So what is the next thing that's going to come? Everywhere we're hearing about a vaccine. Then it's tests, then it's vaccines, and so it's coming. So what are we going to do? Are we going to get better, or is it going to be that they desperately want a vaccine? They desperately want a vaccine. Which means we will eventually not be able to trade. We will not be able to buy. We will not be able to sell. We will not be able to trade. So what are we doing? And that is why today, seeing as though Francois has already done such an awesome job in terms of laying the foundation, in terms of the Torah portion reading, in terms of being able to look at this priests that need to raise up. Like for me, I see the bride as being the priests that are raising up. But there's just a few things I want to be able to just touch on, just in terms of this Torah portion reading that we need to look at. And I want us to look at Deuteronomy 18 verses 13. And this really stood out for me in terms of this Torah portion reading, where the Father himself speaks, and he says, be perfect before Yahuwah, your Lord. Be perfect. So we are called to be perfect before him. Why? Because he's perfect. So now, if he's saying, just in verse 2, he says, whoever does these are an abomination to Yahuwah, and because of these abominations, Yahuwah, your Lord, drives them out from before you. Be perfect before your Lord. Be perfect before Yahuwah. Now, what does that word perfect means? Because it was spoken of Noah that he was perfect. He was perfect in his generation. And I truly believe that the Father is bringing up a priesthood now that must be perfect in this generation. Because the darker we get, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man. So if Noah in his time was having to be a righteous man, he was perfect, he walked with Yahuwah, then what are the three things that we should be doing in this time? Being a righteous person, being perfect, and walking with Yahuwah, just like Noah did. So when I went and looked at this word perfect, this perfect is tomim, which means complete, which means whole, which means entire, which means sound, which means wholesome, which means unimpaired, innocent, having integrity, what is complete and entirely in accordance with truth. Now that is important. So what does it mean to walk perfect before the Father? It means to be able to be entirely in accordance with truth and fact. So we are to walk entirely in accordance with truth of this word. Without blemish. Have we heard about that? He's coming for a bride without spot or wrinkle, without that blemish. Sincerity, sound, without spot, undefiled, one who is upright and one who is whole. And that is everything of what we understand, what it means coming back to ways of Torah, coming back to being able to walk in the fullness of the fruit of the Spirit, because it's not just about the fact that we keep Torah, but it's about the fact that we need to walk out the fullness of the fruit of the Spirit, which is very important as well. And that's why Yahuwah brought a complete full package to us. So, in the time of when Torah was given, they had Torah, but they had not been given the Ruach, because they stopped that on Mount Sinai. So the Father kept giving them prophets and kings and people that was there to be able to lead them and guide them. Back to what? Back to His ways, back to His Torah. Today we have His Ruach HaKodesh. Praise the Father, we have the Ruach of Yahuwah. And the Ruach is there to teach us, to guide us, to lead us. He's the perfect teacher. And that is why we need to be able to understand that the Father wants us to be able to be perfect. Because the time that we're coming in, as the world gets darker, we need to get brighter, but we need to understand the difference between what's right from what's wrong. So if we continue to listen to things that's mingled with error, what starts to contaminate our spirit? Error. And that is why I'm really getting to the point of where I'm having to judge the things that are being said by what I'm saying. Do they walk Torah or don't they? Because that should be our measuring stick, like Francois spoke. These are the judges that the Father's going to put there. Father ain't going to put there a judge that's not walking according to Torah. I cannot see that. How can He give us judges that are going to be there that don't walk Torah? Because the Torah is the plumb line. The Torah is the guideline that He's given us. So if He's going to raise up His judges in this hour, these are judges that are going to have to understand to judge righteously according to what is in Torah and what is not. Because we have to judge according to this word. Now, if they've only got part of the word, then they don't have fullness of the word. So then they're going to judge in part and not in full. And so that's why we need the fullness. So if they've gone and done away with the first part of the Bible and say that's not necessary because it's all been done away with, then what are we doing? How are they going to judge righteously then? And so that's the way I need to look at it. I need to look at the whole Bible, because that's the foundation. Yahuwah said you've got to build your house on a solid foundation. What is the foundation? If you don't have the Torah, you don't have a foundation, because then you're only going to build your house on sinking sand. And that, my people, is what's going to come now. Because when the shaking starts, who's going to stand? Those who truly have learned to be able to be persecuted for His name's sake. For His word and for His ways. Because let me tell you something, I'm sure most of us sitting over here, our true persecution really started when we started to walk truth. When you finally started to walk Torah, that's when people really started to come up against you. Before that, you weren't really being persecuted. You were just like the world. You weren't any different to the world. But let you just start walking Torah. Then even those who are Christian will be the ones who will persecute you. Even your own will be those who will persecute you. Those from your own family are the ones that are going to persecute you. And that is when you're really going to start having to see those who are sheep and those who are not. And so, we look at, I'm wanting to be able to first build from Deuteronomy 21, because from Deuteronomy 21, I'm first going to go back to Deuteronomy 20 and then we'll look at Deuteronomy 21. Deuteronomy 20, from there, this is why we've got to go to Jeremiah 51. Because he says, in Deuteronomy 20, he says, when you go out to battle against your enemies and shall see horses and chariots and people more numerous than you, do not be afraid of them. For Yahuwah your Elohim brought you up from the land of Mitzrayim is with you. So you know what? When you are walking with Abba Yahuwah, and you are walking according to his ways, do we have to fear the enemy? Do we have to fear the things that are coming upon the earth? No, we don't. Because he's the one who says, do not be afraid of them. For I, Yahuwah, who brought you up from the land of Mitzrayim, is with you. So he's going to be with us. And it shall be when you draw near to the battle, that the priest shall come and speak to the people. So that is why the Father needs to raise up his fivefold ministry now. The apostle, the prophet, the evangelist, the pastor, the teacher. He's going to have to raise them up now. Why? Because as the time is coming nearer to the enemy coming on our doorstep, he's going to need those that are going to have to speak the truth in the time that we are in. That's what the fivefold ministry is about. And you shall say to them, hear, O Israel, you are drawing near today to battle with your enemies. Do not let your heart faint. Do not fear or tremble or be afraid before them. So that's why the Father has a need of his bride to raise up in this hour. That's why the Father has a need of these priests to raise up in this hour. To be able to go to those Christians that are out there now that maybe are still not quite on the path with the Father, to go alongside them and say, but we've got nothing to fear. Let us get back to the Father. Let us get back to him. Let us encourage them. Let us start to teach them the way of truth. Because this is what the Father wants to do. Because let me tell you something. They see that the times are near of the things. The battle is at the axe. The axe is there at the tree to be able to come down with the things that are going to happen. I'm going to share with you about how this thing is on our doorstep. And if these priests of the Father now, as his true bride, does not now raise up and take their stand and start to become bold, just like what Audrey said to me earlier, when she said, I woke up this morning and I heard this. No one will need to teach one another who he is, but they will all know him. Because when the bride comes together, the bride is one. Of one accord. And the bride has the same mindset. And the bride has the same heart. And the bride speaks the same message. And the bride's biggest goal is to please her Father. It's to please her bridegroom. It's to please the bridegroom. When she wakes up in the morning, her whole mindset is about her bridegroom. I see Shama now as she got married. Oh, yo, how she faps over Reino. She faps over him, and now, she's there to be able to look after him, and, she faps over him. It's beautiful to see this beautiful bride and bridegroom come together, and, I'm learning as I'm watching them, even where she is with him, and how she just took that place. She didn't know what it was like to be a wife. She'd never been a wife in her life. But now she's become a wife. And it's like no one needed to teach her how to be a wife. She just flowed in it. She just knew how to it's in her to be able to be this wife, to be able to be there. I look at it and it's so encouraging for me to see. She just does it. And this is what it's going to be about with his bride. She's not going to need to learn to be a bride. She's going to know what it means to be a bride. Because why? She has eyes for her bridegroom. She loves her bridegroom. She's in love with her bridegroom. You can just see the love between those two. It's beautiful to see. It's so encouraging to be able to see in this hour this love that is there. And that encourages me, and it makes me see how it's supposed to be in this hour where we are now in this time of our preparation, where we know our bridegroom is coming and we are preparing. And our focus and our heart is drawing closer and closer to him, longing and longing more and more for him. Because she wants to be this bride that wants to please him. It's not a case of she has to do it. It's not a case of where she must do it. It's like what people, on Wednesday there was people here and they were asking me, but, isn't this coming back to Torah? Isn't it like a bit legalistic? Isn't it legalistic? I said, I don't see anything legalistic about what I do. I love my Father, and because I love him, I want to please him. There's nothing legalistic about keeping his ways. I do what I do because I love him so much that I want to please him. And that's how I see Shama. Shamazal is having to, because she loves her husband, she's not having to think about how to be a wife. She just walks in it because she loves Reina. And this is how it is. And I think that's the mindset that we need to have, a change of mindset. You know, Torah is not something that I do because I have to do it, because I have to keep it, because if I don't. Torah is something that I do because I love my Father so much. I want to be obedient to His word and to His ways. And so that is why He turns around and He says, Hear, O Israel, and that is why these priests need to raise up now and to be able to tell the people, to say to them, listen, you need to understand when you walk with the Father and you walk with His ways, and now as these people are coming and they're asking me about Torah, and I'm saying, look, to me it's not legalistic, and that is why He's raising up priests right now that have walked with Him, that know His heart, that know His heartbeat, that know what He's about. It's not, they haven't done Torah just like He says. You don't do this because of, you do this because it's a lifestyle. You walk it out. It's a lifestyle. It's not something that you do because you have to do it. It's something that you do because it's your lifestyle. And when people see your lifestyle, then they see the change because it's a lifestyle that you walk. I don't walk trying to be prophetic. It's a lifestyle. I can't learn to be prophetic. Sometimes I have to try not be prophetic because I'm thinking, sure, maybe I should just tone down a little bit, But I can't change the person that I am. If I see something in a certain way, I just see it like that. The person might not see it like that, but I do. Because that's who I am. That's the way I think. And sometimes the way I think is not always necessarily the way the other person thinks, but that's okay. Because we're all different. So you see, it's exactly what you were saying. The more you walk in what the Father's called you to walk in, the more it sort of becomes who you are. It's not something that you've got to try to do. I can't go learn to become something that I already am. When He called me, that was what He called me. It's who I am. The more I walk in it, the more I take ownership and the more I become it. And that's what we need to do. The more we walk in it, the more we take ownership of who He created us to be. If we're supposed to be this bride, and if we are this bride, the more we walk in it, the more we take ownership of it, the more we become it. You don't have to try strive to be it. You just become it by the more you love your Father. The more you surrender to Him, the more you walk with Him, the more you become that bride. And so, Yahuwah Yolua is He. So it says in verse 20, from chapter 20, verse 4, it says, For Yahuwah Yolua is He who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. So He's the one who's fighting for you. He's the one who's going to go before you. He's the one who's going to lead you every step of the way. And one of the things that we were saying this morning is He's never late, He's never early. He's always on time. His time. You might think He's late because you want Him to show up now. Father, now's a good time for you to pitch up now. But He's never early. He's never late. He's always on time. You see, His time is not your time. He's not looking at your watch. He's going to do it His way. And so right now, we're sitting over here and we're becoming a bit anxious about certain things. And He's saying, you don't need to worry about anything. I'm the one who goes before you. I'm the one who's going to fight for you. I'm the one who's going to be able to save you in that hour. You don't need to fret about it. You don't need to worry about it. Don't go concern yourself about it. Because at the appointed time, I will put everything in place. I tell you, there's things right now, I try to make sense of them in my mind and I can't. I can't make sense of things. And I wish He would give me a little glimpse, but He ain't giving me a glimpse either. Because you see, my kind of personality is I want to know because I want to do. But you see, He's not letting me know because I'm not going to be able to do anything. Because I need to wait on Him and I need to trust Him. Now, my personality is not like that. My personality is, man, I need to know, I'm a go-getter, I want to do, I want to get with the program. But He's trying to teach me to say, well, you need to just, let me put the reins on you. Let you relax. I'm not going to show you everything. Because if I were to show you everything, then you would do it your way. That's the thing. So if he doesn't show you, it's because he's going to do it his way. And that's irritating for me, because if I can see, then I know what to do. But because I cannot see, I have to wait on him and how he's going to do it. And he's going to just surprise us in the end. So I can only do what he tells me to do, what I know what to do for now. So here we see clearly how he's saying that he's going to be able to fight the battle for us. So now let's go to Jeremiah chapter 51. As this was the Torah portion reading, that we were to read. And the beginning of Isaiah 51, he starts speaking, and he's speaking to a people that he's saying, listen to me. From Jeremiah 51 verse 4, he's saying, listen to me, my people, and give ear to me, O my nation. For the Torah goes forth from me, and my right rulings are set as a light to peoples. Please make a note of the scripture. If anybody ever tells you the Torah of Moses, just let them come back to this. Listen to me, my people, and give ear to me, O my nation. For the Torah comes forth from me. The Torah came forth from Abba Yahuwah. It's not the Torah of Moses. It's the Torah of the Father. My right rulings I set as a light to peoples. So he gave his Torah and he gave his right rulings as a light for people. My righteousness is near. My deliverance shall go forth. And my arms judge peoples. Coastlands wait upon me. And for my arm they wait expectantly. And that is where we are right now. We are waiting for Yahushua to come. But I tell you something. In the time of when Yahushua still got to come, many things need to happen upon the earth. Isaiah 51. We are in Isaiah 51. We are now verse 6. Did I say Jeremiah? Oh, sorry. I've lost you completely. I've lost you. Sorry, I'm on another page. I'm on Isaiah. Sorry, I said, you're right. I said Jeremiah. Sorry. Isaiah. Huh? It's just as powerful. So maybe I'm in the spirit. Maybe you should. So it's saying the same thing. Even more. Okay. So we are in Isaiah 51, the Torah portion reading for today. And then he says, lift up your eyes to the heavens and look on the earth beneath. For the heavens shall vanish like smoke, and the earth wear out like a garment. And those who dwell in it die as gnats. But my deliverance is forever, and my righteousness is not broken. Amen. So this is exactly what's going to come in the time that we are going into now. We are going to lift up our eyes because we are going to see the deliverance. The destruction is going to be around us, but we have to know the one in whom we trust. He says, but my deliverance is forever, and my righteousness is not broken. So his righteousness, his right rulings, his right way of doing things, his Torah, because righteousness, who is a righteous person? One who keeps and upholds his laws, his ways of Torah. That's righteousness. Listen to me, you who know righteousness. So he's talking to us now. Listen to me, you who know righteousness, a people in whose heart is my Torah. Do not fear. May this be a word for you today. May this be the encouragement to you today. Listen to me, you who know righteousness, a people in whose heart is my Torah. Do not fear the reproach of men, nor be afraid of their revilings. Do not be afraid of the vaccine. Do not be afraid of a test. Do not be afraid of the fact that they're going to put this one world religion, one world order, one world thing, because you are not of this world. And you need to understand, as long as you're going to be obedient to him, he is the one who's going to be able to lead and guide you. He will lead us and guide us in the time of the greatest darkness. We are not to fear. We are not to fear the things that are going to come. We are to understand that these things are going to come. But we are not those that are going to have to fear. Because he says, for those in whom my Torah is. So who are the ones that have to fear? The ones whom the Torah is not in their hearts. The ones who are not walking according to his righteousness. Those are the ones that are going to have to fear. But those who are walking according to his Torah, we are not to have to fear. Because this is exactly what he's telling us. Do not fear. So now if we look at from verses 17. And this is a prophetic word that we need to hear for the hour that we're in. Awake, awake yourselves. Rise up, O Jerusalem. This is what's going to come upon the earth. This is a prophetic word of what is going to come. Awake, awake yourselves. Rise up. So we need to wake up and we need to rise up. Why? Why is he saying awake? Why is he saying rise up? O Jerusalem, you have drank at the hand of Yahuwah the cup of his wrath. You have drunk the dregs of the cup of reeling and drained it out. So this is prophetically the things that are going to, he speaks nice and then then it's not so nice. You know, as the Father always does, he brings encouragement and then he rebukes. Because Abba has got the two sides to him. I love my child. I embrace my child. I speak lovingly to my child. But if my child is going to get out of hand, I am going to reprimand him and I am going to correct him because I love him. But people always think that love is this pussyfooting, nice little, he's only going to show us the nice loving side. But my Father corrects me as much as what he loves me. He corrects me. He says, of all the sons she bore, she has none to guide her. So may that not be said of us, that we have none to guide us. Because we have the Ruach of Yahuwah. We have Yeshua. And there is our guideline. We have Torah, we have this word. And all the sons she brought up, none is strengthening her hand. So just like you said, are we strengthening each other? Are we encouraging each other? Are we uplifting each other in this time of what we're going through? Both these are coming upon you. Now listen. Now hear carefully. Both these are coming upon you. This is what's going to come upon the earth. Who is sorry for you? Ruin and destruction. Ruin and destruction is coming upon the earth. Listen. Scarcity of food and sword. How shall I comfort you? So do you see what's going to come upon this earth? It's going to be ruin and destruction. Scarcity of food. That's why the Father's telling me, gather food. In this Bible, it always talks about a famine to come. Even in the book of Revelation, it talks about famine, scarcity of food. So we know that that's part of the things that's going to come. And I'm going to share with you because now listen. Just this morning, my friend from the States, she sent me a message. Because I told her about 2 weeks ago. I really told her, I said to her, listen. This is what the Father's saying to me. I don't know what everybody else is doing, but what the Father's saying to me, I just felt I needed to share it with her. The Father is telling me, gather food, gather supplies. You need to have wisdom in the things that you need to be able to get now. Because the times that we're going to go into is going to be dark days and we need to be prepared. And so I started to tell her that and she said, Natalia, it's like in my spirit, I'd been hearing this, but I wasn't really listening. You see, again, who was she listening to? Who has she lent her ears to? What are the things, prophetic things she's listening to? It's not telling you to prepare. It's telling you all the nice things. So all the prophetic things that she'd been listening to was the nice peaceful things. But nobody was telling her to prepare. So I told her, about 2 weeks ago, I said to her, listen here. You need to start preparing. And I started to send her other prophetic things from different prophets in her nation that is not like the well-known prophets, Not those well-known ones. The ones that nobody knows, but that we seem to find those prophets. It's the ones that nobody knows. We somehow tend to find those prophets. And then I sent some of these things to her. This morning she sends me a message. She says, Natalia, you won't believe it. Now I'm going to the shops. We've started preparing, just like I now know we had to start preparing, so we started preparing. Now all of a sudden we're going to the shops and they say, you're only allowed 1 item of this. You're only allowed 4 items of this. You're only allowed 1. Some things there's not even there. Now they're starting to close down the smaller shops so that you can only go to Walmart and the bigger places so that they can control you to only get from there. And she says it's very subtle. And if someone is not aware of it, they're not going to see it coming. Do you see? What's the next wave that's going to come? When you look again, you're not even going to get food on your shelves. And she says, and then we went to the chemist, and we wanted to go buy this like alcohol, like this pure alcohol to clean out wounds and everything. So we bought quite a bit. So I went, because she's staying with other people and they're preparing together. So I went in the morning. By the time they went into the afternoon, they wiped it off the shelves. They didn't allow us to get any more because they became aware that we were buying things that we shouldn't be buying because we bought in bulk. So do you see? Now, she was not even aware of this. She hadn't even started preparing for this. Now, all of a sudden, and the prophetic word that had come out, they said, by the end of August, you got until the end of August. And, you know, that they were saying in America, by the end of August, you better start preparing, you better start getting food by the end of August, because by the end of August, it's going to start drying up. And she says, now, look already. We're going to the shops and they're saying, and she sent me photos. 1 item only of this thing, 4 items only, tin food. You're only allowed 4 items of tin food. You're only allowed 1 butter. You're only allowed 1 of this, 1 of that. You're only allowed 1. But this is a nation of such abundance. She says, and this is what I can't understand. Things are getting better. Economy is supposedly getting better. Everything's getting better. So then why are they taking our food supply away from us? What's coming? But you see, if you were not tuned in to the right frequency, then what would you have done? You would have been going with a different frequency of prophetic words that's out there, of stepping back and everything's going to get better and everything and it's peace, peace and no problem, and you weren't tuned into the right prophetic frequency. And then when you looked again, you would come to the shelves and then what have you got? And then what's going to happen to how many people are going to fall away? Because now, Father, why? What has happened? What is going on? And she says already, now she knows America, and she says, when there starts to be a low supply of food, they start rioting hectic. They start to riot. And she says, and then great fear comes upon the people. And then the way they start to behave because of that. So she says, so I see this starting to unfold. So here we have in this Torah portion reading where he's saying, these are the things that are going to come. But I need you to understand, you are not to fear. Because my sheep will hear my voice, and the voice of a stranger they will not follow. And I am going to lead them, and I am going to guide them, and I am going to equip them, and I am going to help them, because these are those keeping my Torah. So if my Torah people are preparing, and if they're not, I'm going to start waking them up and talking to them quickly. He will prepare them. So, let's now look from 52 from verse 1. Isaiah 52 from verse 1. Awake, awake. Put on your strength, O Zion. Put on your garments of splendor, O Jerusalem, the set-apart city, for no more do the uncircumcised and unclean come into you. So you see, Father is wanting a set-apart people. So when He raises up New Jerusalem, when He raises up, when we are going to be able to dwell in the city of Jerusalem, He wants there to be no unclean is going to walk there. Shake yourselves from the dust. Arise and sit down, O Jerusalem. Loose yourself from the bonds of your neck, O captive daughter of Zion. Why is the Father taking us through this month of Elul now? To shake off those things that is still keeping us captive and bound to the things of this world and to the things That's the word that the Father is bringing in this hour. Let go of those things. Let go of your possessions. Let go of those things that you hold dear to your life. Because if I must say to you, pack your bag, you need to run, you need to go. You better not look back. You better not look back. Like Lot's wife. She was still looking at what she left behind. Don't look at what you have. Like me now. I've had to leave behind when I left for Israel, left behind. Now again I have to look, go. Don't look. Ask Carol how many times I say, I've got that. Yes, at home I've got that. It's not here. It's at home. What I don't have, I don't have. I can't look behind. It's like this one prophet gave a message, and she was explaining in her word, and she said, you know, when you go on a mission to climb a mountain, or you're going to go on a hike, what must he do? He's got to pack his bag, everything, before he goes on the hike. So if you're going to go on a hike, you pack your bag, you pack your things. If you're going to go and you're going to have to camp out there, you've got to get your camping gear ready, you've got to get everything ready. You need to know you've got your torch, you need to know you've got your everything you're going to need for the bush of whatever it is that you're going to need to go with. When you're halfway up the mountain, you can't all of a sudden realize, but wait a second, and I need more supply of protein bars because I'm running out of stamina here. I need more protein bars. You have to take inventory and say, what is it that I need? Because whatever you're going to take with you is what you're going to have. Whatever you're not going to have, you're not going to have. That's why the Father said to me, whatever you need to get, you better get. Because whatever you're not going to have, you're not going to be able to buy. You can't sit there and say to yourself, well, you know what, I'll just go to the shop and then I'll be able to buy it. How are you going to buy if you're going to have an ID bracelet 2020, an ID bracelet that's going to have to tell you you've been tested, vaccinated, everything. How are you going to be able to buy them? You can't buy. So whatever you're not going to have, you're not going to be able to get. So that's why he's saying, when you get yourself ready, you need to have an inventory. And even my friend this morning was saying, they sat down with the Father. They said, Father, help us. Give us the wisdom that we may be able to get the things that we need. That we do not waste what we don't need, but that we get what we need. And let us be led by the Ruach to be able to know what is it that we need. You know that in that country, you're not even allowed to gather rainwater. The same as in Israel. You're not allowed to gather rainwater. It's illegal. It's illegal to gather rainwater.
And also solar panels.
It's illegal. So you see, they don't want you to have these things. In Israel, it's the same. You're not allowed to gather rainwater. The rainwater belongs to the government. It doesn't belong to you. But it belongs to the Father. And He gives it freely. So they are just deciding, they're gathering big drum things to gather the rainwater. So that they can just gather it there. Because when the time comes, they're at least going to be able to get the water that's going to come from heaven, whether it's illegal or not. But if the Father's going to supply the rainwater, they will get it. And now they're getting things to be able to purify the water because they're going to know that the water's going to be contaminated. So they're getting all the things to purify the water. So she said, Natalia, the Father has sat with us now and He's giving us inventory and He's helping us. And the Ruach is leading us and guiding us in the things that we should get. And like I said to her, I even said to her this morning, I said, gather sesame seed. Because do you know that the sesame seed is one of your highest form of iron? You know, if you get a cut and you are bleeding, sesame seed is able to replenish your blood quicker than anything else on this earth. Sesame seed. And then, if you don't have iron, get nails. And if you put it into a fruit, that nails will form iron, and you eat that iron, it will give you the iron that you need to replenish your blood. Things like this that we should know. And where did I learn that from? Don't think I'm so clever. I didn't learn it myself. I heard it from a testimony of a woman that for 4 years she was battling with the hemorrhaging. And she was giving me the testimony last year when she was in my apartment. And she says, the Father never allowed me to go for hysterectomy. And He said to me, I will take you through this. Now, why did she have to learn those valuable life lessons? We wouldn't have known. What's the first thing we do if we're hemorrhaging? Go to the hospital, go for a hysterectomy. When you're not going to be able to do that, what are you going to do? She's been there. And there I was listening to a whole testimony of how the Father carried her in those 4 years and dark chocolate. We're going to need to put in our little trommel. Thank you, Abba. Some chocolate. Dark chocolate. Very good as well to be able to replenish you. And so I was learning life skills while she was telling me her testimony. And the father totally healed after 4 years. And believe me, how many of her family thought she's mad? Just go for the hysterectomy. Father told me I will not. I will trust him. And for 4 years she almost died. But she learned how to get iron into her body to replenish the blood that was being lost. Did she learn valuable information that was being able to give to me today, that I can give to you today, that she's going to be able to give how many people when the time comes? Do you see? These are the things that one needs to learn. But now, if she didn't go through it, how is she going to teach us? Do you see? Do you see how important it is that the Father take us through life tests? Because those life tests has become life skills for the times that are going to be ahead of us. So gather sesame seed. And even partially, Elsie she taught me something now. With the parsley, she taught us something. You know, parsley after a while it's going to go off. Dry the parsley. Store the parsley dried. Parsley is the highest form, another one of your vegetables high in iron. So these are the things that we're going to need to understand, that we're going to need to know. So, he says, in Isaiah 52, we carry on from verse 3. For thus says Yahuwah, you have been sold for naught, and you are redeemed not with silver. For thus says the Master Yahuwah, at first my people went down to Mitzrayim, to sojourn then, and Ashur oppressed them without cause. Is that now not what's going to happen to us? We are going to be oppressed without cause. Because we want to do what's right, we are going to be oppressed. And now, what have I here, declares Yahuwah, that my people are taken away for naught. Those who rule over them make them wail, declares Yahuwah. And my name is despised all day continually. Now, just on that, we can do a whole teaching on that day name thing. That's another mission that I've been on. Therefore, my people shall know my name in that day, for I am the one who is speaking, seeth his eye. Who are the people that we are being sealed with his name? Do you see why the protection that's going to come again, the seal of his name? And that's why it's so important that now in the hour that we're in, Father is revealing his name. And he doesn't want us to carry on with Lord and God and Lord and God and Lord and God. He wants us to know his name. Because it's been despised. How pleasant are the mountains. How pleasant upon the mountains are the feet of him who brings good news, who proclaims peace, who brings good news, who proclaims deliverance, who says to Zion, your allure reigns. Now that is what we are to be as the bride. Those who are going to bring peace in a situation where there's going to be destruction. Those who are going to bring the good news when everybody's running scared and running with their tail between their legs. The voice of your watchman, there you see, the voice of your watchman, they shall lift up their voices. Together they shall shout for joy, because eye to eye they see the return of Yahuwah to Zion. So you see, we are not those who have to fear. We are the watchmen on the wall that are going to have to be there to help and equip the people, and be there to encourage the people, to speak peace in a situation where there's going to be chaos and destruction. Because we are the watchmen. But we need to warn the people at the same time. Wake up, O sleeper. Break forth into joy. Sing together, you waste places of Jerusalem. For Yahuwah shall comfort his people. He shall redeem Jerusalem. Yahuwah shall lay bare his set-apart arm in the eyes of all the nations. And all the ends of the earth shall see the deliverance of our allure. Amen. All eyes are going to see the deliverance. Now, turn aside, come out from there, touch not the unclean. Now, do you see why he's saying that we need to come out of these things that are going to maybe pollute our ears, from things that is going to be able to lead us astray? Come out from listening to things that if you know that it's not the truth, then we are not to continue in it. For you shall not come out in haste, nor go in flight, for Yahuwah is going before you, and the Yahuwah of Israel is your rear guard. So He's going to protect you. You're not going to go in the flight. You're not going to go in haste, praise the Father. He's going to go before us. Just not like right now, like I would like right now for Him to show me a few things, but in His perfect timing. But it's not going to be in haste. He will give us enough time to be able to make sure that we will be prepared if we are listening. So that is why in 2 Corinthians 6, let's just quickly go to 2 Corinthians 6 verses 14, because we are to come out, and you already preached on this as well, just about a few Shabbats ago as well, Francois, about us being able to make sure that we make ourselves clean and that we come out from those unclean things. 2 Corinthians, it says, do not become unequally yoked with unbelievers. Sorry, 2 Corinthians 6 from verses 14 to chapter 7 verse 1. Do not become unevenly yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership have righteousness and lawlessness? So you see, how are we going to continue to listen to people that will continue in lawlessness? We cannot. And what fellowship has light with darkness? Because you need to understand that separation is becoming bigger and bigger now. The separation is going to get bigger and bigger. From those who are going to walk in His ways and obey His truths, and from those that are not. And what agreement has Messiah with Belial? Or what part does a believer have with an unbeliever? And what union has the dwelling place of Yahuwah with idols? So you see, if we are called to walk in His tabernacle and to be a tabernacle that carries His presence, we cannot partake of these other things that we know to be wrong. For you are a dwelling place of the living Yahuwah. As Yahuwah has said, I shall dwell in them and walk among them, and I shall be their Yahuwah, and they shall be my people. Therefore, come out from among them. There He's saying again, come out from among them. That is why the message that Francois preached and the foundation that he laid about the fact that we are to understand that He gives us priests and He gives us His judges. And this is the body of believers that is the bride. And the Father is more and more bringing the bride together. And we are going to have to learn to walk with one another. And yes, we will be iron that is going to sharpen iron. I'm not going to say that we're not, because we all come with our character flaws and we all come with our little issues. And it's going to be iron that sharpens iron. But as long as we stay humble to be able to say, okay, look, you know what? Let me just humble myself over here. I have not arrived. Nobody's arrived. And we will all work with one another. So because we must understand, we're going to all live with one another. Eventually. Those that are going to have to come together as a people that are going to come together, you're going to be a lot of you together. If you don't start learning to humble now and starting to come down and that, it's me, myself and I on a throne, it's going to be a problem. And not everybody's going to see things the way you see it. And you're going to have to be willing to hear each other. Because together we make a body. Therefore come out from among them and be separate, says Yahuwah, and do not touch what is unclean. And I shall receive you. You see that being perfect, He doesn't want us to be unclean. And I shall be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me, says Yahuwah the Almighty. And that is what He's doing with us now in this month of Elul. He wants us now to be able to be His children, and He wants to be a father. And He wants people that are going to be able to love Him. He wants sons and daughters, that He can be a father to us. And in this time of the month of Elul, it's really a cleansing of this body, cleansing of the mind, the will, the emotions, cleansing of our beliefs, cleansing of everything. Having then these promises, beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all defilement of the flesh and spirit, perfecting set apartness in the fear of Yahuwah. So that is what He's wanting us in this time, is to be able to clean ourselves and we become set apart. And this is the guideline, the set apartness in this word, set apartness in truth, set apartness in who He is and in your relationship with Him. Because the way He's going to talk to you might not be the way He talks to me. And we must make room for one another. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to close with this. I went to fetch my book. Okay. Let's go look at that Ephesians. I want to finish with Ephesians because when Francois was talking about we're talking about the gifts that we've, how the Father has given to each one of us different gifts. And we need to understand it's something, it's gifts. It's not so that we can just acquire titles. We're not to be titles. We're not about titles, we're about gifts. Because if He calls you as a prophet, or He calls you an apostle, or He calls you a teacher, or He calls you a pastor, He calls you an evangelist, whatever He calls you, it's a gift. You are a gift for the body. It's not about you putting a title behind your name, which is what so much of the church has done. They want to raise themselves up and elate themselves because now they bear a title. To me, more and more one wants to run away from the gifting than you actually want to embrace the gifting, because that gift is not easy. But yet, we want these titles. And yes, He's called you as that, but it's a gift. For what? Because here's what the word says. So let's go to Ephesians chapter 4. And let's go look at verse 11. So it says, and He Himself gave some as emissaries, as the apostles, the emissaries, and some as prophets, and some as evangelists, and some as shepherds and teachers. Now please, let's go to verse 12. They were not there for you to get a title. They were there for what? For the perfecting. Now that word perfecting is the word katatizu. That you spoke that, you gave that word, perfecting. You used it. Which is to render fit, sound, complete, to mend what has been broken, to repair, to complete, to equip, to put in order, to arrange, adjust, prepare, strengthen, perfect, complete, make one what he ought to be. So if I know that you have a gifting in your life, I'm to be able to help you to come into the fullness of that gifting. Amen. Not so that you can run around and get a nice title behind you and now you can go and... Okay, let me not be nasty now, Father. I'm trying to tone myself down here. I'm going to be nice now. Okay. Verse 13. Until we all come to the unity. Now that word unity is enotis. It's G1775. The unity, that is the agreement, the oneness. We become one. Of the belief, that belief, faith, is pistis, which is the conviction of the truth, the belief, the respecting man's relation to Yah, the divine things, the trust, the holy favor, the faithfulness, the fidelity, the character of one who can be relied on. Moral conviction of truth, truthfulness of Yahuwah, reliance upon Yeshua for salvation. It's truth itself. That's the faith. And that faith comes with utter obedience. So we are to be teaching people. How do you teach people to have faith without having obedience? Faith can never come if you don't have obedience. And the knowledge of the Son of Yahuwah, so we need to be able to have, so do you see, these are the things that we need to do. We need to be able to listen carefully. This is what we need to be. So if we are the bride that needs to rise up now, if we are those priests that need to come forth, this is exactly what it is. We have to be able to, we all have to come into unity of the faith, so we become one, that we all know that we have to keep Torah, we all believe in the Torah, we all walk in the same Torah, we all know who the Father is, and we become one. And the knowledge of the Son of Yahuwah to perfect man. So we have to perfect man to the measure of the stature of completeness. So, perfect, tamim. To complete the whole entire, sound, unimpaired, innocent, having integrity. I already read it to you, that the Father says we need to become perfect. To the measure of the stature of completeness of Messiah. So we need to come into the completeness of Messiah. That completeness is the fullness, filled up. We need to be a container that is filled up with the presence, the power of the richness of Yahuwah, of Messiah, of the fullness of abundance. This is a teaching that I've done that's in my book that it just came to me. So I'm not going to go into it because I'm already over time. But this is what we're supposed to be doing as becoming priests, as becoming judges, as becoming a bride. This is what we're supposed to do. So that we should no longer be children. Listen why we should no longer. So that we should no longer be children, tossed and borne about by every wind of teaching. Because when we finally come to the truth in oneness of truth of this word, then we're not going to dispute these issues anymore. Because then we become oneness of the truth. And we're not going to be tossed by every wind of teaching, by the trickery of men in cleverness unto the craftiness of leading astray. So you see, that's why we've got to lend our ears to the right teaching. What are we listening to? Are we listening to the things that is bringing us into this completeness, into the perfecting us in the likeness of Abba Yahuwah, in the likeness of Yeshua, in walking in His ways and in His truths? But maintaining the truth in love, we grow up in all respects into Him who is the head, which is Messiah. So at the end of the day, we are all servants, and we only have one head, which is Messiah. And so praise the Father. I could go on here, because this was a whole teaching. Actually, I did this teaching at Dollar's Farm. I think it was not last year, year before. No, beginning of last year. So, praise Abba Father. This is the word that the Father is wanting to give us this morning. And I want to close off with a scripture from Revelation, verse 4. Revelation 18, verse 4. And it says, "And I heard another voice from the heavens saying, 'Come out of her, my people.'" Listen carefully to what the Father is saying in this day. "And I heard another voice from heaven saying, 'Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues.'" So if we do not come out of these wrong mindsets, wrong teachings, wrong ways, we are going to be able to understand that we are going to share of her sins, because this is Babylon. This is Babylon, because before it says Babel has fallen. And this is Babylon. And Babylon comes in various different ways. Babylon is not just this monetary system. Babylon comes, remember what Babylon wants to bring us? One world religion, one world order. One world system, one world religion. So we need to understand coming out of Babylon means coming out of the religious mindsets of the things that we've been taught, that is error, and coming out of a world system that is to control man, that how many are going to fall to be able to have money, to be able to have their possessions, to be able to have their things. And that is why he's saying, come out of it. Do not be putting your trust and your faith in your wealth and in your possessions and in your things, because it's not going to help you. The day that he says to you, come, you need to run, you need to go. You cannot take it with you. So that is not what we should be acquiring right now. What we should acquire right now is what is going to help us. Food is what's going to become. If the loaf of food is going to cost you a day's wages, man, if you got food, you can barter with food. Do you understand? So, thank you, Abba Father, for your word.